99% of you are not subscribed to the channel. At 1,000 subscribers, I will post a series of special stories. Subscribe now.
The fabric of reality rippled and tore as a portal materialized in the midst of a dense forest. The surrounding trees, ancient and towering, seemed to bow under the weight of the energy that crackled from the breach. The portal, a swirling vortex of blues and purples, pulsed with an eerie light before spitting out its cargo, a being not of this world. Kyle stepped through, his feet sinking slightly into the mossy ground. He stood still for a moment, allowing his senses to adjust to the new environment. His skin, a mottled blend of deep blues and greens, shimmered faintly as it adapted to the Earth's atmosphere. The four eyes set into his elongated skull scanned the surroundings, each one independently swiveling to take in the details of the alien terrain. This planet was primitive by his species' standards, yet there was a raw beauty to it. The forest was alive with the sounds of rustling leaves and distant animal calls, but there was an underlying silence, a stillness that hinted at the presence of a predator. Kyle knew that predator was him. He took a deep breath, drawing in the unfamiliar air. The atmosphere was thick with moisture, the scent of pine and earth mixing with the faint traces of pollution that lingered in the distance. He had studied Earth extensively in preparation for this mission, but there was nothing like experiencing it firsthand. The planet was a backwater in the grand scheme of things, insignificant to the interstellar powers that governed the galaxy. And yet here he was, sent on a mission to this obscure corner of the cosmos. The target was a human, something Kyle had never encountered in his long career as an assassin. His kind had dealt with countless species across multiple star systems, some advanced, some primitive, all ultimately inconsequential. But humans were an enigma. They were classified as a Class 3 species, technologically young and politically fractured. Yet they had an unpredictability that made them a subject of study, if not concern. His mission was clear: eliminate Dr. Alara Martin. The details provided to him were sparse, but the directive from the council had been absolute. Dr. Martin was a scientist working on a project that, if successful, could destabilize the delicate balance of power that held the galaxy together. The specifics of her research were deemed too dangerous for even Kyle to know. All that mattered was that she could not be allowed to succeed. Kyle activated his cloaking device, and his form shimmered before vanishing entirely. To the human eye, he would be nothing more than a slight distortion in the air, invisible to all but the most advanced detection systems. The technology was standard for his kind, assassins bred and trained for missions that required absolute stealth and precision. He began to move, his steps soundless as he navigated the forest with ease. His senses, far superior to any humans, guided him towards his destination, a remote research facility deep within this forest, hidden from the prying eyes of the world. The facility was small, almost insignificant, but Kyle knew that it housed the key to a technology that could reshape the very fabric of space-time. As he approached the facility's outer perimeter, he slowed, assessing the security systems. The technology was impressive, especially for a human installation. Automated turrets, motion sensors, and energy barriers were all designed to keep intruders out, but to Kyle, it was little more than a challenge. With a series of precise movements, he bypassed the perimeter, his form slipping through gaps in the defenses like water through cracks in stone. He paused at the entrance to the facility, his hand hovering over the control panel. His advanced hacking device made short work of the lock, and the heavy door slid open with a faint hiss. Inside, the facility was stark and utilitarian, a labyrinth of corridors and labs, all leading to the heart of the operation, the place where Dr. Alara Martin was undoubtedly hard at work. But as he stepped inside, something unexpected happened. A voice, deep and resonant, echoed in his mind. It was the Council, reaching across the vastness of space to deliver a message. This is your final warning, Kyle. Humans are not like the others. If you value your existence, you must run. The words sent a chill through him, a sensation he had not felt in centuries. The Council's warnings were not to be taken lightly. They were the rulers of his world, the architects of his existence, and their commands were absolute. Yet the message was cryptic, unlike anything he had received before. Run, from a human. Kyle's thoughts raced as he continued deeper into the facility, the warning playing over and over in his mind. He had never encountered a human, never faced a species that warranted such a caution. His training, his experience, they all told him that this mission was no different from the countless others he had completed. But the Council's words had planted a seed of doubt. He approached the central lab, his steps slowing as he neared his target. The door to the lab was reinforced, but Kael's advanced tools made short work of the lock. As the door slid open, he prepared himself for the encounter. Dr. Alara Martin, the human scientist who had become a target of the galaxy's most feared assassin, would soon be within his grasp. But as the door opened, Kael felt something he had never felt before on a mission. Hesitation. The Council's warning echoed in his mind, louder and more insistent than ever. And for the first time in his long career, Kael wondered if he was walking into something far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. The first chapter ends here, setting the stage for the impending confrontation and the mysterious nature of Kael's mission on Earth. The warning from the Council adds a layer of tension, hinting that this mission may be unlike anything Kael has faced before. Dr. Alara Martin's lab was bathed in the soft glow of computer monitors and the flickering lights of various scientific instruments. The room was cluttered with notes, datapads, and strange devices, some finished, others still in various stages of assembly. Alara herself was hunched over a workbench, her fingers flying across the surface of a holographic interface as she adjusted the parameters of her latest experiment. The air was thick with the scent of metal and ozone, the byproducts of the cutting-edge technology she was working on. To an outsider, the lab would have looked chaotic, a jumble of wires, screens, and machinery. But to Alara, it was a sanctuary, a place where the mysteries of the universe unfolded before her eyes. Her research was pushing the boundaries of what humanity understood about space-time, quantum mechanics, and the very nature of reality. But tonight, the atmosphere in the lab was different. A nagging sense of unease had been gnawing at her for hours, a feeling she couldn't shake no matter how deeply she buried herself in her work. It was as if the air itself had become charged, heavy with the weight of something impending, something dangerous. Then the alarms went off. Alara jumped, her heart leaping into her throat as the piercing sound of the facility's security alarms shattered the silence. Red lights flashed along the walls, and the screens around her blazed with warning messages. Unknown intruder detected. The AI she had designed to monitor the facility's defenses spoke in a calm, measured tone that belied the urgency of the situation. Dr. Martin, an unauthorized entity has breached the outer perimeter. All personnel are advised to initiate lockdown procedures immediately. Alara's mind raced as she processed the information. An intruder? Here in the middle of nowhere. It made no sense. The facility was supposed to be hidden off the grid, its location known only to a select few in the highest levels of government and military. Yet someone, something, had found her. She quickly activated the lockdown, and the heavy doors of the lab sealed shut with a resounding thud. The automated turrets positioned around the facility whirred to life, scanning for the intruder with cold, mechanical precision. The security system was state-of-the-art, designed to repel even the most determined of attackers. But as Alara watched the monitors, she saw nothing. No movement, no sign of the intruder. Just the dark, empty corridors of the facility, eerily still despite the alarms blaring through the speakers. A chill ran down her spine. Whoever, or whatever, had breached the perimeter was skilled, far more skilled than any ordinary human could be. Her thoughts flashed to the quantum destabilizer, the device she had been developing in secret. It was a project that had consumed her for years, a machine capable of manipulating space-time on a scale that had never been attempted before. The potential applications were staggering. Instantaneous travel across vast distances, the ability to rewrite the laws of physics, even the possibility of altering the flow of time itself. But with such power came great danger. If the technology fell into the wrong hands, it could be used as a weapon of unimaginable destruction. And now someone was here, trying to take it from her. Alara's hands shook as she keyed in a series of commands, initiating the self-destruct sequence for the destabilizer. If she couldn't protect her work, she would destroy it. The countdown appeared on the screen, a silent reminder of the time slipping away. Suddenly, the monitors flickered, and for a brief moment she caught sight of a figure, a blur, barely visible, moving with impossible speed. Her breath caught in her throat. Whatever it wasn't human. The figure moved closer, its form distorting the air around it as it approached the lab. Alara's mind raced, trying to comprehend what she was seeing. The intruder was cloaked, invisible to the naked eye, but the facility's sensors were still able to detect the faint traces of its presence. Her heart pounded as she realized that whatever this thing was, it had evaded all of her defenses. The turrets, the energy barriers, the sensors, none of them had been able to stop it. And now, it was here, right outside the door. Alara's gaze flicked to the countdown timer. She had mere minutes before the quantum destabilizer would be reduced to a pile of molten scrap. But would she survive that long? The lab door shuddered as the intruder began to bypass the final security lock. Alara could hear the faint hum of machinery as the door's reinforced bolts slowly disengaged, one by one. She backed away from the door, her mind racing with fear and desperation. She had no weapon, no way to defend herself against whatever was coming. But she wasn't helpless. She was a scientist, a problem solver, and her mind was her greatest weapon. With a deep breath, she activated the lab's emergency protocols. A transparent energy barrier snapped into place around the destabilizer, a final layer of protection. It wouldn't hold for long, but it might buy her some time. The door slid open with a soft hiss, and Alara found herself face to face with her attacker. The creature that stepped into the lab was unlike anything she had ever seen. It stood nearly 7 feet tall, its body encased in a form-fitting suit of advanced alien technology. Its skin, a mottled blend of deep blues and greens, seemed to shift and ripple like water, reflecting the light in strange, hypnotic patterns. But it was the creature's eyes that held her attention, 4 of them, glowing a cold, calculating silver, each one focused on her with unnerving intensity. For a moment, neither of them moved. Alara felt a strange mix of fear and awe as she stared at the alien before her. She had always dreamed of making first contact with an extraterrestrial species, but not like this. Not as the target of an assassin. The creature spoke, its voice deep and resonant, but tinged with an accent that made the words sound strange, almost mechanical. "Dr. Alara Martin, you must cease your work. You have been deemed a threat." Alara's mind raced as she tried to comprehend what was happening. The alien was speaking English. How, she had no idea. But the implications were clear. This being had been sent to kill her, to stop her from completing her research. But why? Alara took a step back, her heart pounding in her chest. "Who sent you? Why are you doing this?" she demanded, her voice trembling but firm. The alien tilted its head slightly as if considering her questions. "You have created technology that poses a danger to the galaxy. My orders are to neutralize that threat." Alara's mind whirled. The galaxy? The stakes were far higher than she had ever imagined. Her research had attracted the attention of beings from beyond the stars, beings who saw her work as a threat to their existence. But she wasn't a threat. She was just a scientist, trying to push the boundaries of human knowledge. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to think clearly. "I don't know who you are, or what you think I've done, but I'm not your enemy. My work isn't a weapon. It's meant to help us understand the universe, to unlock its secrets." The alien remained silent, its gaze unblinking. Alara couldn't tell if her words were having any effect, but she pressed on. "If you kill me, you'll be destroying years of research. Research that could benefit countless lives. Please, just listen to me." For a long moment, the alien didn't move. Alara held her breath, waiting for the inevitable. But instead of attacking, the creature seemed to hesitate. Its 4 eyes flickered, and Alara could almost sense the conflict within it. Then something unexpected happened. The alien's head jerked slightly as if it had received a command from some unseen source. Its eyes narrowed, and it spoke again, this time with a hint of uncertainty. "This is your final warning. If you value your existence, you must run." Alara froze, her mind racing. Run? The alien was warning her to run? The situation had taken a turn she hadn't anticipated. She wasn't sure what was happening, but the fear in the alien's voice was unmistakable. The countdown on the screen continued to tick down, the numbers flashing ominously. Alara knew she was out of time. She had to make a decision, fight or flee. But as she looked into the eyes of the alien assassin, she realized that something had changed. It was no longer just a mission for this being. It was something more, something that made it afraid. And if this creature with all its power and technology was afraid, then maybe, just maybe, Alara had a chance. Without another word, she turned and ran, her heart pounding as she raced towards the emergency exit. The alien watched her go, its expression unreadable, and as the door closed behind her, sealing her off from the lab and the quantum destabilizer, she heard the faintest whisper in her mind. "Run." Alara's feet pounded against the cold metallic floor as she raced down the corridor, the sound of her labored breathing echoing off the walls. The emergency lights cast an eerie red glow, painting the narrow passage in blood-like hues. She knew the facility like the back of her hand, but in her panic, the corridors seemed to stretch on endlessly, twisting and turning in ways that disoriented her. Behind her, she could still feel the presence of the alien assassin, its warning echoing in her mind. Run. The word reverberated through her thoughts, pushing her forward even as doubt gnawed at her. Why had the creature warned her? Why had it hesitated? There was something about this entire situation that didn't add up, something that hinted at a truth far more complex than she had initially believed. She skidded to a halt as she reached a junction in the corridor, her eyes darting between the two paths before her. To the left, the exit, a way out of the facility and into the forest beyond. To the right, the central command room, where she could access the facility's data and perhaps find answers. For a moment, Alara hesitated. She could escape, disappear into the wilderness and hope that whatever technology the alien had used to find her couldn't track her through the dense forest. But that would leave her with nothing. No answers, no closure, and no way to prevent another attack. Or she could confront the mystery head-on, risking everything for the truth. Her mind raced as she weighed her options. She had always been a scientist, driven by a relentless curiosity and a desire to understand the unknown. Running had never been in her nature. She clenched her fists, drawing strength from that resolve, and turned right, sprinting towards the command room. The door to the central command room slid open with a quiet hiss, revealing a small circular chamber filled with screens, consoles, and holographic displays. The room was the nerve center of the facility, where Alara monitored all aspects of her research and communicated with the outside world. It was here that she hoped to find the answers she so desperately needed. She quickly approached the main console and began typing furiously, pulling up the facility's sensor logs, security footage, and any other data that could shed light on the events of the past few hours. As the information flooded the screens, Alara's eyes scanned the data, her mind racing to make sense of it all. The first thing she noticed was the sheer speed and precision with which the alien had breached the facility's defenses. The sensors had picked up only the faintest traces of its presence, indicating technology far beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. But that wasn't what caught her attention. Buried deep within the logs was a transmission, an encrypted message that had been sent to the alien just moments before it had entered her lab. Alara's heart skipped a beat as she realized that this might be the key to understanding the assassin's hesitation. She quickly decrypted the message, her hands trembling as the text appeared on the screen. Kale, this is the Council. The mission parameters have changed. New intelligence suggests that the human is not aware of the full implications of her work. You are authorized to engage in communication, assess her understanding of the technology, and report back. This is your final warning. Humans possess an unpredictable element that we do not fully comprehend. If she is hostile, or if you feel your life is at risk, retreat immediately. Do not underestimate her. Run. Alara stared at the screen, her mind reeling. The alien, Kael, had been sent to kill her, but the Council had ordered him to communicate with her first, to assess her understanding of the quantum destabilizer, and they had warned him to retreat if things went wrong. The implications were staggering. The Council, whoever they were, feared something about humanity, something they couldn't control or predict. Alara's technology was dangerous, yes, but the Council's fears seemed to go beyond that. They were afraid of her, of what she might do, of what she might become if pushed too far. She sat back, trying to process this new information. The Council's fear of humanity, coupled with Kael's hesitation, painted a picture of a species that was far more vulnerable than it appeared. They were powerful, yes, but they were also cautious, wary of the unknown element that humans represented. Alara's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden shift in the room's atmosphere. The temperature dropped, and the lights dimmed as if responding to some unseen presence. She turned slowly, her breath catching in her throat as she saw Kael standing in the doorway, his imposing figure silhouetted against the dim light. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Alara's mind raced, trying to think of what to say, how to defuse the situation. But before she could find the words, Kael stepped forward, his silver eyes locking onto hers. I have seen the transmission, he said, his voice resonant and calm. The Council has authorized me to speak with you, to assess your intentions. But they have also warned me to be cautious, to retreat if necessary. Alara took a deep breath, steadying herself. She had been given an opportunity, a chance to communicate, to understand, and perhaps to find a way out of this deadly game. You don't have to do this, she said quietly. You don't have to kill me. We can talk, figure out what's really going on here. Kael's eyes narrowed slightly, his expression unreadable. My mission is to neutralize the threat you pose to the galaxy. If your intentions are peaceful, then explain to me why your technology is so dangerous." Alara hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "The quantum destabilizer is a tool, not a weapon. It's designed to manipulate space-time, to allow us to understand the underlying structure of the universe. But, I admit, I don't fully understand its potential. I've only scratched the surface of what it can do." Kael remained silent, his gaze intense as he listened. Alara continued, her voice steadying as she spoke. "I never intended for this technology to be used as a weapon, but I realize now that it could be, and that's why I'm willing to destroy it. If it's too dangerous, if it could cause harm on a galactic scale, then I'll take responsibility and make sure it never sees the light of day." Kael studied her, his eyes narrowing as he processed her words. Alara could feel the weight of his gaze, the scrutiny of a being who had likely seen countless civilizations rise and fall. She had no way of knowing what he was thinking, but she could sense that her words were having an effect. Finally, Kael spoke. "The Council feared you because they do not understand your kind. They warned me to run because they believe humans are unpredictable, dangerous when cornered. But I do not sense hostility in you, only a desire to protect what you care about." Alara nodded, relief flooding through her. "That's all I want, to protect my work, my world, and to ensure that this technology doesn't fall into the wrong hands." Kael seemed to consider this, his expression softening slightly. "If you destroy the quantum destabilizer, the Council will no longer see you as a threat. But they will still watch you, still fear what humanity might become." Alara swallowed hard, understanding the gravity of the situation. "Then we'll have to prove them wrong. Show them that we're not the monsters they fear." Kael stepped closer, his towering form now only a few feet away from her. "You are different from the others I have encountered, Dr. Martin. Perhaps there is more to your kind than the Council understands. But be warned, if they believe you are a threat again, they will send others, and they may not be as willing to listen." Alara met his gaze, her resolve firm. "I understand, but I won't let that happen. I'll do whatever it takes to protect my world and ensure that this technology is never used for harm." For a long moment they stood in silence, two beings from different worlds, each trying to comprehend the other. Then Kael nodded, a gesture of agreement, of respect. "I will report to the Council that the threat has been neutralized. The quantum destabilizer will be destroyed and you will disappear. The Council will have no reason to pursue you further." Alara exhaled slowly, the weight of the situation lifting slightly from her shoulders. "Thank you, Kael. You're giving me a chance to make things right." Kael's eyes glowed softly as he responded. "Perhaps in time our paths will cross again. But until then, remember the warning. Humans may be unpredictable, but the galaxy is vast and not all who come will be as merciful." With that, he turned and walked towards the door, his form shimmering as the cloaking device reactivated. Within seconds he vanished from sight, leaving Alara alone in the command room, the hum of the facility's systems the only sound in the stillness. Alara stood there for a moment, processing everything that had happened. She had been given a second chance, a chance to protect her work and her world. But she also knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was watching, and the next time things might not end so peacefully. She turned back to the console, her fingers dancing across the interface as she initiated the final sequence to destroy the quantum destabilizer. As the countdown began, she felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. Her life's work was about to be reduced to ashes, but it was a necessary sacrifice. The facility shuddered as the device's core began to destabilize, the energy within it building to critical levels. Alara watched the countdown, her mind already thinking of her next steps. She would disappear, just as Kael had said, and start anew. There was so much more to discover, so much more to understand. And as the final seconds ticked away, Alara made a silent promise to herself. She would continue to push the boundaries of knowledge, to explore the unknown, but she would do so with caution, with respect for the power she wielded. The screen went dark as the quantum destabilizer self-destructed, the explosion contained within the facility's reinforced walls. Alara felt the vibration through the floor, a physical manifestation of the end of one chapter of her life. But as she turned to leave, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something far greater. The universe was vast, and she had only glimpsed a fraction of its mysteries. And now she knew she wasn't alone. The forest was quiet, the night air cool and still as Alara emerged from the hidden exit of the facility. She had made her way through the labyrinthine passages beneath the compound, now standing on the edge of the forest, where the trees loomed like ancient sentinels under the pale light of the moon. The scent of pine and damp earth filled her lungs as she took a deep breath, trying to steady herself after the intense confrontation with Kael. Behind her, the facility was nothing but a dark silhouette, a secret buried deep within the woods, soon to be nothing more than a memory. She had destroyed the quantum destabilizer as promised, but the weight of what had transpired hung heavy on her shoulders. The knowledge that she had been deemed a threat by beings from another world, beings with technology far beyond human understanding, was overwhelming. But there was no time to dwell on the past. She had to move, to disappear, just as Kael had advised. The Council might accept the destruction of the destabilizer as the end of the threat, but they would be watching, and if she made a wrong move, they could send another assassin, one who might not hesitate as Kael had. Alara pulled her jacket tighter around her, feeling the chill of the night. She had packed a small bag with essentials, leaving behind everything she had built, everything she had worked for. The weight of the bag was nothing compared to the weight of her decision, but she knew it was the only choice she could make to ensure her survival, and possibly the survival of humanity. As she began to walk into the forest, her mind raced with thoughts of what to do next. She had connections, people she could reach out to for help, but she had to be careful. The Council had eyes everywhere, and she couldn't risk exposing herself or her allies to further danger. But one thought lingered above all others. Kael, the alien assassin who had spared her life, who had given her the chance to make things right. She couldn't shake the image of his cold, silver eyes that had looked at her with something more than just the intent to kill. There had been curiosity, understanding, and perhaps even a sliver of compassion. Alara wondered what would happen to him now. Would the Council punish him for sparing her? Would they send him on another mission, to another world, to eliminate another threat? The idea of Kael being nothing more than a tool, a weapon in the hands of a faceless bureaucracy, troubled her deeply. And then there was the Council itself. The fear they had of humanity, of the unpredictable nature of her kind, suggested that they saw humans as a potential threat not just because of the destabilizer, but because of something inherent in human nature. Alara didn't know whether to feel proud or terrified by that realization. As she moved deeper into the forest, the trees closed in around her, the darkness growing thicker. She would need to find shelter, a place to rest and plan her next move. But just as she was about to start searching for a suitable spot, she heard a faint sound, a rustling in the underbrush, something moving towards her. Alara froze, her heart leaping into her throat. She reached into her bag, her fingers closing around the small makeshift weapon she had managed to grab before leaving the facility. It was nothing more than a modified energy tool, not designed for combat but capable of delivering a powerful shock if necessary. She stood still, every muscle tense as the sound grew closer. Her mind raced, wondering if the Council had already sent another assassin, if Kael had been overruled and someone else had been dispatched to finish the job. But as the figure emerged from the shadows, Alara's breath caught in her throat. It was Kael. He stepped into the moonlight, his cloaking device deactivated, revealing his tall, imposing form. His eyes, still glowing with that eerie silver light, locked onto hers, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Alara's grip on the energy tool tightened, but she didn't raise it. Something in Kael's demeanor told her he wasn't here to harm her, at least not yet. "You didn't run," Kael said, his voice low and resonant, the accent still strange but somehow familiar after their last conversation. Alara swallowed hard, trying to steady her nerves. "I did run. I'm leaving the facility, just like you said." Kael's gaze didn't waver. "You are supposed to disappear, Dr. Martin. The Council will expect you to vanish completely." Alara nodded slowly. "I know, and I will. But I need answers first. I need to understand what's really going on." Kael took a step closer, his movements measured, deliberate. "The Council fears your kind, Dr. Martin. They fear what humanity might become if left unchecked. You possess qualities that they cannot predict or control, and that makes you dangerous in their eyes." Alara frowned, her mind racing. "But why? What is it about us that scares them so much?" Kael hesitated, a rare moment of uncertainty crossing his features. "The Council has encountered many species in their time, but none like yours. Humans are adaptable, resilient, capable of rapid evolution both physically and mentally. Your potential for growth is unmatched, and with it comes the potential for great destruction." Alara felt a chill run down her spine. So they see us as a threat? A threat to the galaxy? Kael nodded slowly. Yes, they believe that if humanity continues on its current path, you could one day rival even the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, and they fear what you might do with that power. Alara's mind reeled at the implications. The Council wasn't just afraid of her technology, they were afraid of humanity as a whole, of what her species could become. It was a sobering thought, one that made her realize just how high the stakes really were. But I'm just one person, Alara said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm not a threat. I don't want to harm anyone. Kael's eyes softened, and for the first time Alara saw something that resembled sympathy. The Council does not see individuals, Dr. Martin. They see potential threats, potential dangers. You may not intend to harm anyone, but your work could lead to unintended consequences. Consequences that could ripple across the galaxy. Alara looked down at the ground, her mind heavy with the weight of his words. She had always believed in the power of science to do good, to advance knowledge and improve lives. But now she was being forced to confront the darker side of that power, the potential for destruction, for unintended consequences that could spiral out of control. She looked back up at Kael, her resolve hardening. I understand, but I won't let fear dictate my actions. I'll destroy the destabilizer, and I'll disappear. But I won't stop searching for answers. I won't stop trying to understand the universe. Kael studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then slowly he nodded. I believe you, Dr. Martin, and I will not stop you. But know this, if the Council sees you as a threat again, they will not hesitate to send another assassin, one who may not be as merciful. Alara felt a pang of gratitude and sorrow at his words. She knew he was right. This was a delicate balance, and she would have to tread carefully if she wanted to avoid drawing the Council's attention again. Thank you, Kael, she said softly, for sparing my life, for giving me a chance. Kael nodded again, a gesture of acknowledgement. Perhaps in another time, another place, we could have been allies. But for now our paths must diverge. Alara felt a lump form in her throat as she realized that this was likely the last time she would see Kael. Despite the circumstances of their meeting, she had come to respect him, to see him as more than just an assassin. He was a being bound by duty, by a code, but also by a sense of honor that had ultimately led him to spare her. Goodbye, Kael, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Kael turned, his form beginning to shimmer as the cloaking device activated. Goodbye, Dr. Martin. May your path lead to peace. And with that, he vanished into the night, leaving Alara alone in the forest, the echoes of his words lingering in the air. For a long moment she stood there, staring into the darkness where Kael had disappeared. Then slowly she turned and began to walk, her steps sure, her mind clear. She would disappear, just as she had promised. She would destroy the destabilizer, ensuring that it could never be used to harm anyone. But she wouldn't stop searching for answers, for understanding. The universe was vast, full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered, and she wasn't about to let fear stop her from exploring them. But she would be cautious. She would tread carefully, knowing that the Council's eyes were always watching, that the galaxy was a far more dangerous place than she had ever imagined. As she walked deeper into the forest, the trees closing in around her, Alara felt a sense of resolve settle over her. She had been given a second chance, a chance to make things right, and she wasn't going to waste it. The path ahead was uncertain, full of risks and challenges, but she was ready to face them, ready to forge her own destiny. And as she disappeared into the darkness, she knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in her life, a chapter full of possibility, of hope, and of the unknown. The future was hers to shape.